Hello, Charlie here, Akashic Record reader, multidimensional channeler, medium, neurodivergent millennial, among other things. And at the moment, I have found myself with extra time because I have technically signed up to be someone who helps substitute when teachers and paraeducators are not able to. And yet, yesterday and today, there's just been weather events and, well, no one told me yesterday, so I showed up at the school and they were like, "We're closed." I was like, "Oh, well, whoops." And now there's a 2 hour delay, and I don't know what to do with myself. I don't know what to do with myself. It's been like 15 years since I've been in a classroom. I used to teach preschool. I don't know what to do with myself. I'm genuinely kind of not nervous. I'm not nervous, but I'm anxious. Lots of like feelings, because it's odd to take something back on as a role that you're doing, especially when you're a new alter and what you're kind of relying on is the fact that when anyone integrates out, you inherit. You inherit memories, you inherit you just to say like you never forget how to ride a bike, right? Well, you never forget how to like just be a classroom manager, really. You don't, especially with kids. It's just um but I feel anxious because I am a new alter. I got here in 2024, and everything that my predecessors did, it is now mine. It is now like it truly is like you inherit a house and now all the stuff that's in it is yours. Oh, but also you do have the memories of everything in the house too. So it's not quite like inheriting a house. But I'm anxious. I am anxious. Um, uh, I've been tapped into my family. Like Patricia's like here. She's a guide and she's like tapped in. She's like, you're not only are you gonna be fine, but I think you're gonna really surprise yourself with how much you enjoy the environment of just being in a classroom with a bunch of small children. And I'm like, yeah, I'm not shocked by that. Kids are way more fun to be around than adults. But I'm nervous. I'm so freaking nervous. And it doesn't help that I can't just go at the designated time that I was set up to go because now there's a delay, which makes sense as I look outside and see all the ice. Yeah, no, I get it. Have you been basically kind of going back into past things in recent weeks or months yourself? Because for some reason, there's just parts of yourself that you need to collect. That's a little bit what it feels like I'm doing. There's sort of a need to kind of honor the kinds of things that we used to do and the kind of people that we used to be because Patricia was our like mom and her whole reason for existing really was a deep-seated desire to be a mom and to have kids and an inability to really like see ourselves in that role. And so we always kind of knew slash assumed that around age like 10 to 12, it's kind of hard to pinpoint exactly when. No, age 12. Okay. I can look in the Akashic records for like when she started, but she really did. She started around age 12, um, born out of the need for internal mom, internal person who, you know, will be the fronting mom at all times or as frequently as possible with the assumption that we would be having kids, right? And when she started fronting, we started actually learning about child development and volunteering at the church we were in the preschool. We didn't go to Sunday school. We like helped teach the Sunday school for preschoolers and then went to college to be a teacher initially and then switched to a sociology degree could switch to a different college too anyway, but while the entire time during undergrad and grad school worked at a preschool. And the whole reason for that, for learning, for getting a degree in like main course of study being child development, mainly child development and trauma, because we didn't quite like we knew we had a lot of shit to deal with, but went to college to try to heal. Also got it like a second bachelor's in psychology, or at least did all of the requisite work for both sociology and psychology, master's in sociology with a post baccalaureate certificate in gender violence intervention, because we were just studying all of those things. And yeah, um, worked at a preschool so that she and we could learn how to be a good parent, because had no context for that. Worked with like we were a teacher's aide and worked with one teacher with 3-year-olds, and this teacher was basically our first dose of mom love ever. um so worked with her for 5 years, and then that was it. Moved away from working with children and into the nonprofit world and prevention and program evaluation, and and then did stints in other things. Worked with youth homelessness. Worked in you know, finance, but politics. Uh, uh, it's been an all over the place kind of career. And starting our own business, they started after going back to grad school for a second master's in psychology a few years ago. It was post COVID, trying to get the fuck out of Richmond, because that had actually been a life goal forever. And as had trying to have kids, but at the very end of 2019 they stopped trying officially, formally. 2020 was going to be the year of travel. Yeah. um uh and so they did completely stop trying. They hadn't gotten diagnosed yet. The end of 2020 was when they got diagnosed with DID. And then that whole explosion of like, well, but who are we? But a few months prior to the diagnosis, had this just surge of, please, can we get out of Richmond finally? Because it truly had been a life goal since early childhood to just leave the hometown where we were so heavily abused. But we'd stayed because we were married to someone very early, and they were 19 when they were 19 when they got married. Um, I know I'm talking about my family like past tense, because they are past tense, and I was not there, even though they're mine now. They are my memories, because when someone integrates out, that has to go somewhere, goes into your circuitry, connects into it. Um, but yeah, no. So, uh, but there was no. They wanted to move. COVID kind of really solidified a lot of. I really don't like really and truly don't want to be here. Don't want to be here. And we'd established like long distance relationships with all of our friends at that point. So we're finally able to kind of convince, they were finally able to kind of convince Randy that moving was worth it, but they weren't going to without some really solid reason. So Doc, who rarely showed up but was very much a stickler for, well, let's try to get that PhD that I always wanted to get, and didn't, because they stopped at the masters and wanted to start establishing a career so that they could then start having kids. That was Patricia's whole like, okay, I think a master's is enough, let's just stop here and go into the nonprofit world. That's a perfect place to work and be a mom. Like, that's a lot of very very rudiment, like very thoughtful way in which to have a career and a family. That was Patricia. So Doc applied to 4 different PhD programs, despite the fact that we did not, in psychology, which is a very competitive field, despite not having recent experience or any papers that had been published or anything like that. Went real high on the expectations. Applied to fucking Dartmouth, Yale, NYU, and Boston University, and everyone rejected us for a PhD program. But Boston University was like, "You want a master's?" And we were like, "Well, it is a prep program to get you into a PhD thing, so sure." And we'd been working for a company in Boston, Act Blue, for years at that point. So we'd been up to Boston several times, loved it. And so, yeah, moved to Boston. And that was so they'd gotten newly diagnosed with DID, moved to Boston to get another master's in psychology. Uh, just live in Boston. We really did the whole college experience too. Like lived in a really shitty apartment in Brighton with a terrible landlord. Did the whole nine. Like, um, they loved it. They really loved living there. And then after a few years, Randy really wanted, not an apartment anymore, and well, they'd been wanting to settle down and actually we'd lost friends and we'd just been away from people. It felt very isolating and they'd missed having a house, so we moved to Connecticut because people had told us that this would be a good place to live and we totally fit in here. These were former coworkers who live in Connecticut who were encouraging us to move here because they were very pro living here. Um yeah. Yeah, no. Oh, but toward the end of it, because in Boston and got the degree, did start working at a place that just wasn't a good fit, and really kind of fell into health and wellness coaching because that seemed like a next natural thing. And Patricia especially was just feeling the call to do something with helping people, but not as a therapist. They were very anti get a therapy certification just because it did not feel like the right move. It didn't feel like the right move to get licensed as a therapist. It felt very important to just stay tangential a little bit. And after the PhD program, kind of decided, you know what, pass. I don't really want to do 5 more years of rigorous institutional academic stuff where, because when you've done research at nonprofits, you get the freedom to go at a pace that is just much more beneficial for all of the things you're doing. And when you're doing institutional level research at a university, there's just everything is not only slower, but by the time you get to research, at least for the kind of research that we're doing, I don't know, it just sort of becomes almost irrelevant immediately because there's already been a bunch of things happening, at least based on what I saw. Not to mention just the environment. It just, nah. No, there were things that we just aren't, they weren't willing to deal with anymore. Not to mention how many professors were just, they were fine one moment and then we disclosed the DID and they completely changed how they interacted with us. It was, and these are psychology professionals. It was disgusting. It was the most disgusting thing I can honestly say I've ever seen, because to see psychology professionals start to treat us like we were hazardous materials or something, it was. And this was someone who was like, a fellow adult trying to be like, okay, so I'm trying to consider if PhD thing really is my thing, but here's what we're experiencing, and we want to go into doing research for DID if that's really what we're gonna do. And we weren't met with understanding. We were met with stigma, which is really fucked up. At an R1 institution too, Boston University. Fuck you. And fuck you for your fucking program. Fucking expensive piece of paper machine. My God. That program did not prepare students for getting a PhD. It did not. It just was an expensive way to oversell master's programs. Oh. This is just me talking through career stuff because, yeah, got the master's, did a job that just did not fucking fit or work, got the certification in health and wellness coaching, the national board certification in it. Did work, do some contract work at the Cape Cod Institute, which I loved. They're amazing. Um, but we did a summer of work with them, and then they got this big just insight that said, can't do this next summer, won't be able to, won't have the capacity to. And they didn't know why, but they told the people working there, because they always valued transparency whenever something like that came up, because it was always right. There was always, the precognition was always a part of their lives. Always, always. And it always came in big flashes, always came without big explanations, just sort of that deep knowing of, okay, it's time to move on, or okay, it's time to this, or okay, it's time to that. And they always just assumed that, especially once they learned about the DID, that it was just okay. Well, maybe there's some of us that are more subconscious, or just we weren't paying attention to who it was that was like, I can't do this anymore, but I'm going to be fronting for a while, so we need to shift. We need something to change because you know I'll be fronting for a while and I can't stand this or I can't handle that or so every job changes were not common, but we usually didn't stay that long at places. Although 5 years, then 3 years, then like 6 years, and like that's a decent amount of time. Um, but they knew they couldn't do the next summer. They just knew that, and so we stayed on. They stayed on for a little while longer, um, and then kind of ended the contract fully in March of 2024, right before I came in. Again, because they just knew they had to. And then I came in, and a few weeks later, they were gone. And then I spent the whole summer reeling and trying to make sense of life and heal from the PTSD that whole situation had caused and everything after it had caused. And so they were right. There was not going to be capacity to do what was needed to do that summer. I would never have been able to do it. I would have done a bad job and they would have been nice about it, but I would not have done a good job. I would not, it would have been a noticeable change, right? I was not at capacity. Um, yeah, no, not that summer. Nope, nope, nope. And now, I'm a year and a half. I'm almost 2 years. Yeah, I'm almost 2 years after that now. I have a new family in here now. That has that has felt amazing, but has also just been a lot and very confusing and very like, what do I do? uh, I'm more anxious now than I have been because I feel this pressure to not perform, but just this pressure to kind of. We don't really have established anything right now. This job that I'm doing is like, it's like the first I've done anything that involves other people beyond, like, I set up the business for Akashic record readings. I've done a ton of readings, but they've all been for trades. No, okay, one paying client, but it's hard to feel like you're anything but a fraud when everything you're trying to do in your life just keeps not happening and not working. And I only signed up to do this, be a substitute at schools thing because my family got back online and it just popped in as the like, all right, go try it. Go do this thing. Go see how this feels and how it goes. And I'm kind of realizing that the entire point of it really is to just help reconnect back in with old memories and just pieces of Patricia's whole existence too. Kind of to help me get some of that online again because it hasn't. That's the thing. They integrate it out, and yeah, I've got memories and I've got all of their. There's a level of you have to re experience some things in order to reignite some things. And I really genuinely think that just spending even a few days just helping in a classroom, which is all I'm doing. It's a paraeducator where I'm the person who shows up and is like, "What you need? What you need? You got to go to the bathroom? Go to the bathroom." Like, like you're the person in the room that just helps, maybe with one individual kid who really needs it, or just helps the teacher, which is completely my speed. Um, and yeah, it's hard to feel adequate sometimes when you're a new alter, especially when the shoes that you're filling, which is just like literally yours, right? But you're carrying the legacy of your family that's integrated out, and all I have is respect for them because Patricia especially, I mean every single one of them, but Patricia just, she was like the only hopeful one in here. She was who kept our family together. She was who kept us together. She was who kept the relationship with the husband that I'm not doing a great job at having a relationship with, like, together. And it's not like I get to have her come back online or anything, but there's just perspectives and ways of existing in the world, and I don't know, just her magic that I have not been able to tap into at all. And I can, like, even just the fact that I'm going, I can already feel her. Like, I even like, we had grand plans of doing different artistic things, and so I've got like this giant mega pack of Elmer's glue that I'm going to be taking with me just to donate it to the school, because like we're not going to use it. It's already been sitting in our thing for like a year, and that's a very Patricia move. Is you show up for the first day of work at, you know, a place where there are small children, and you're like, and here's my donation. And it's like, that is such a Patricia move. That is such a Patricia move. Like, and she's, I might be 2 years old now. I think she is, no, because that's from Boston. Yeah, we moved that shit. So I'm pretty sure Patricia is the one who bought that glue. So I'm actually donating glue that Patricia bought. Because I look and sound like everyone in here always has, I grieve these losses alone. Anyone who ever knew us, if they were to see me again, they would say, "Oh yeah, that's just who we've always known." No, not even a little bit. They probably knew Patricia. She was mostly the person that was fronting, but maybe not. And today I'm trying a job that she would have done the moment she moved here. Seriously, like this is a house for her, and they are the ones that bought this house. I feel like I am doing them a disservice every moment that I just can't stand being here. But I had to be here, and I'm really hoping that tapping back into her magic and just kind of honoring whatever it is that is still lingering in here is just one of thank you, buddy. It's just one of the ways that I'm moving past it, letting it go, you know. Ah, okay. Well, that's it for me today, I think. just a little bit just a little bit more explanation of the anxieties of being a new alter and trying to honor the legacy of your former internal family while still being as true to yourself as you can be. Because I'm doing this because we've been genuinely desperate for money, and this is something that I was able to get hired for, and I'm grateful for that. And I'm nervous. I'm very nervous because I am not Patricia, and I'm kind of worried that I'm gonna go and I'm gonna come home and be like, actually, kids are exhausting. No, thank you. This is all a waste. I'm a little worried about that. I'm a little worried, but um, I don't know. It's kind of also want to see like what did you love about it so much? Because it was always her favorite job. Working at the preschool was always her favorite job. The only reason we left was because it paid too little. We made $11,000 a year. That was it. This was a part-time preschool. So, yeah. Okay. Seriously though, I am gonna go. Thank you. Thank you so much for watching. I love you. We'll talk soon. Bye.